All right. Hi, everyone. We'll try to start because we have to maintain the time. I'm under control. So welcome and thank you very much for being here. Of course, this is a difficult hour after lunch, but we'll make it as funny, entertaining as possible. But of course, I'll trust fully the moderator and the panelists to do that. Just a quick word of introduction, saying that for us, of course, this event is mainly driven in this conception around, coordinating ourselves and providing a response against the far right. And what a better topic in order to address that than the climate one that has been under attack by the far right since a long time now, but also through the perspective of young people, because as the name of this session expresses it, we are talking about, okay, our future, but actually the world in which we are living in right now. And so we have the right, or we should have the right, to also contribute to shaping the climate policies and defining what we want the world to be when we will be older. So for this, I'm very happy to have this table with a lot of people that have been always involved in youth politics and will be the perfect speakers to address this topic. But first of all, I will introduce the moderator, my magnificent, marvelous Vice President, Vice President Juan Diego Romera Espinas. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel, Our Climate, Our Future. Today we are here not only to talk about what is the climate change, the green transition. We're here to talk about actions. We're going to talk about policy, and we're going to talk about many other things that the green transition implies. For example, security, feminism, economy, many other things that in general create an ambience, better say, that will change the world, and we are fighting for that from Jess in many other ways with our work across Europe. But being here in the global progressive mobilization is also the opportunity to all of us to discuss, to understand different points of view, and of course to see how we can get better, how we can be better, and how we can work better together. So for that, we are going to discuss today on this topic, and I would love to introduce our three panelists. Here we have Delara Burskas. I pronounce it so bad. Our environmental spokesperson for the SPD in the European Parliament, and also a Jan-elected MEP. Also, we have Javi Lopez, Vice President of the European Parliament, member of the PSC here in Catalonia, and, of course, Jess veteran, and Evin Edding, easy. That is our member from the Swedish party and also MEP in the European Parliament. I would love to start with Javi, if I may. Having this question, that is, can the green transition become European main security strategy, not just environmentally, but economically, geopolitically? Can we extend that?
Well, yes, of course, I would say. I think we have to underline this argument in the conversation, that when we are talking about green energy and the green transition, it's not only about fighting climate change, that it's probably the most important threat for the humanity, but it's also respecting and defending our sovereignty as a Europeans, and defending our sovereignty when it's under pressure, and probably the most important pressure that we have seen in our lives. We saw during the Ukrainian war how toxic it was, our dependency of fossil fuels coming from Russia. But now we are seeing in the Iranian war how toxic is our dependency of fossil fuels coming from Qatar, for example. Then it's jeopardized by the fossil fuels our capacity to decide by ourselves. our dependencies from outside, energy, but also security, strategic industry, it's damaging our capacity to decide by ourselves. Then, yes, when we are talking about green transition, we are talking about sovereignty, we are talking about competitiveness, we are talking about dependency, and also we are talking about our capacity to decide about ourselves, by ourselves, about our future.
Thank you so much, Javi. I follow the question with Delara. I would love to know how can climate policy regain trust among young people who feel so strongly affected by the climate crisis, but at the same time perceives politics as too slow and overly technocrat?
Well, I cannot tell them they're wrong, because this is literally the problem. I mean, I don't think that young people think that or are having a lack of hope. They are having a lack of patience, and I very much understand so, because being a politician myself, I feel like you know, the climate crisis is not something abstract in the future. It's something that is already, when you say it frankly, shit is hitting already the fan, and we have to work it now. And yet in the political debate, it's still something that is paperwork, that is some abstract targets, strategies, directives that need to be implemented, and we shouldn't make it about that. It should be about improving lives, because this is literally the point. The climate, it might change, but it can live without us. We as a civilization, we cannot live without a planet that is livable. And this is what we, I think, have to put in the center, that it's about giving people answers to the questions they have now. They have questions like, how can I pay my rent? Will I have an apartment where I can afford heating? Will I have a job in the future when there are no jobs on a dead planet? So we have to work with what is actually the problem people are facing, and not doing some technocratic exercise of it. But I also have to be frank, it's not only about changing the narrative on how we do climate policies, it's about actually delivering. Because a narrative without real action is basically PR. And we don't need politics PR, we need action, we need progressive action, and this is why I'm so happy to get inspired by so many great people here today, because we need hope, and I think we in the European Parliament are right now in this defense mode, and we need to come out and really shape the agenda and mobilize people behind it.
Thank you so much. And now I would love to hear Evan about why must climate policy also be a feminist policy?
It's on? Yes, now it's on. First and foremost, it's lovely to be here at this event, and thanks for inviting me to speak also in this panel. I would say that it should be very evident that the society needs to encompass, it needs to include the whole society. We cannot continuing allowing discrimination to take place where half of the population is constantly excluded. And honestly, when we look at the environment and climate related issue, it hits those who are the most vulnerable. And we know women and girls. And children at large also are among the most vulnerable, and therefore also the climate perspective that we have must have a gender equality and feminist lenses on. And unfortunately, the attacks on feminism has been intensified the last years. The far right are growing, the center right, the conservatives are growing, which means that we see a backlash on it. So it's our responsibility to roll up our sleeves and to ensure that the feminist lenses are on, even when we talk about environment and climate. Again, especially also due to that the most vulnerable groups are most hit. Just look around the world when it comes to climate-related conflicts, climate-related challenges, wars, poverty, etc. It's women and children who are among the most vulnerable.
Thank you so much. Now I would love to open a bit the conversation between all of you. And I catch a couple of topics that we can discuss together. And I think we could start with the narratives that more of you were talking about. And I would love to know your perspective about those new narratives that came from the far right that try to create a new paradigm around the climate change, around the green agenda, around, for example, the green transition. And I would love to know how you could how you could fight against that narrative from your own perspective and find between all of you a common point that we can also use with the youth. So you can, if you want to start, you can, whatever you want.
So maybe one narrative problem we had is that the climate policies were always communicated as something that we do altruistically for the planet, and we have to do it because otherwise the climate will change and we will not be able to live on this climate. So it was always altruistic, and this opened the room for the right to say, well, they don't only care about the climate, but we care about you having an affordable life. And I think this is the gap that we now have to overcome as it's basically lying, because what the right is doing, they only play with the fears. They don't offer solutions for the people to actually have a life in a sustainable future. And this is the key problem, that they are lying, they're making people scared, and we cannot counteract with, yeah, well, we will draw you behind us when we have the transition and we will make sure that nobody is left behind. Don't get me wrong, I think nobody is left behind is an important goal of social democratic policy, but this is not how we mobilize people for progressive ideas. People who vote for progressive parties or won't vote for progressive parties because they want to be dragged along the way. They want to actually be mobilized, empowered, that the future we are heading towards is something that they can live in, that they have positive impacts, can have a positive life, that they will develop, and it's like being part of a cool gang. And this is not the case right now. We're defending, we're in the narrative. So I want us to come in the front, be more offensive, and show that we don't want the profits for a few by remaining the status quo. We want a better future for everyone in order to live on this planet and to have good jobs in the future. So it should be about shaping future and not about defending what we did already with majorities that were not so great, we have to say. The Green Deal is not a social democratic project. It has a lot of fights that we have, but there has to be a bigger story that we pull along people to be, they want to be part of, and not only they want to be dragged along.
Well, first of all, what I would say is it's difficult to have a strong progressive narrative if the future is not a desirable place. If everything is moved by fear, and the worst fear is the fear to the future, then everything becomes defensive and every change becomes a threat. And this is what is happening now, basically. Then the first thing that I think we have to say and we have to be able to explain is, if we together, we join forces, we build together a just future, the future can be a desirable place for us, for our kids, for the rest of our society. Second, we have to combine and mix arguments when we are talking about climate. I really agree with the comment made by Delara, like, well, for me, climate change is the most important threat for the humanity. I think maybe probably here we don't have doubts about this. But to be honest, climate in itself could be seen as too abstract. No, not enough concrete in terms of consequence for who is listening, who is voting, who is deciding. And then we have to be able to mix climate with other arguments that are interlinked. First, health, public health. this is more concrete, because like health, it's talking about you, your family, your future, your kids. And to be honest, like public health, it's extremely interconnected with green agenda, extremely, and also the awareness, the sensitiveness after Corona and after the pandemic with health changed in the good sense for the public opinion. Secondly, we have been talking about sovereignty, and it's important here. Security, that it's a reality. It's one of the main concerns of our societies. Well, when we are talking about green transition and green agenda, we are talking about our sovereignty and our security. Third, we have to say enough to this false and fake dilemma between competitiveness and sustainability. Because it's completely fake. Completely fake. Well, the problem that we had during the last years and the recession that we had in Europe, it was not because the green laws. It was because we had a huge dependency coming from the fossil fuels of Russia. This was our main problem. It was not our European Green Deal. And then we are living in this crazy world that now we are blaming, or they are blaming, the European Green Deals to our problems that are basically based on our dependency on fossil fuels. And my last point, like we can use good examples, and Spain is a good example. Like we were able to have now more than the 60% of our electricity made by renewables. And to be honest, now we will have a mess on energy supplies in the world, and we know that we will be able to have one of the cheapest energies in Europe because we don't have two dependency coming from the American or the Qatari gas. And this is protecting our jobs, and it's protecting our economy, who is the big economy who is growing more in Europe. And not only, but partially, is thanks to renewables.
Well, I think first you just need to make a comment on, I think Dilara said one thing that I fully agree on, and that is that, of course, we have adopted legislation and the policies during the last mandate which we are not 100%, we don't 100% sympathize with, but on the other hand, we didn't have any option because we don't have 50+1 votes in the parliament, and this mandate we have even less, since the far right and the right has their own majority. But one thing that was missing in the climate law that was adopted was actually the gender equality lenses. That was one thing that was very, very clear, that legislation actually lacked that perspective. And that also showed that it was far away from a social democratic one. But if we would have voted no to it, what would have been the option? Nevertheless, and then what Javi said, and I fully agree on that also, hope. Hope is essential. And to show that the tool of green transition is actually there to solve the challenges, not becoming a challenge per se. And everybody, are very clear with that we would not have been in the situation we are with the dependency on Russia or Iran if we would have made this grand transition long time ago. So the right and the far right, the only thing they do is, of course, they play on fear. And we need to become much better on putting our narrative. And I feel, honestly, that as a socialist movement, sometimes we are behind constantly. We act, we react. We are not those who are taking leadership, and we need to start taking leadership. In Spain, I fully agree, of course. Pedro Sanchez has shown how fast it can go when the will is there, but we need to be able to show more of that in other member states also, and show that those are the solutions of the future, not the problems of the future. Otherwise, it would be continue being very easy for people to buy this narrative of fear. So we need to build a narrative of hope.
thank you so much for the three of you. As you planned, as hearing all your interventions, my question, and I think probably part of the audience also think about it, we are always speaking about what we are doing, how we do the narrative. I love the point that Javi did about, for example, public health. That is one of the main active policy that we can show the world how we can do it better. And I would love to ask you about looking to the future, because also this panel is our climate, our future, and calling or talking for the youth, and also because Jess is part of that movement, how you could speak with the youth about the green transition in a way that they understand it. And that's why I took the point of Javi about public health, because we can find good policies on there. But I would like to know how you, in your different countries, in your different atmospheres, talk with the youth about these topics that in many times are complex to speak. So how you do it. That's what I would like to know, also to learn and to understand how your figures, because at the end you are three members of the parliament, and at the end your careers are linked to many topics, but in this case the green transition is one of those. I would love to know how you talk with the people about those topics, to understand it better and also to communicate better.
First and foremost, it's the young people who is going to live in the future. So it's not, when we talk about young future, of course, the young, youth, it is both about the future and the present. But in order for people to be able to live in the future, we need to act now, and we cannot wait for actions in the future. That is very important, and then it needs to be tangible. Of course, we need to be able to show how it directly affects us. Health is totally a concrete example. Security is another example. Feminism, we talk about, is a third example. So we need to be able to package them, because it affects everything in our daily life. What we consume, it also affects. The air that you breathe in when you go to school is being affected by it. So we need to make it easy, but then also we need to be there where young people are. And honestly, when it comes to the current situation, with the digital tools that are being used, with online platforms and all of that, it is easier to spread disinformation and misinformation than spread real information. And we need to also start being where young people are moving around. And the best way is actually that young people are talking to young people, because when it's one of your peers, you have it a bit easier to listen to the other person than an older person who comes and tells you how the reality really is. So there is quite a lot we need to do. Policy-wise, we need to show and make it more tangible, more, you can touch it, but we also need to be there where the young people are. And we also need to ensure that our parties do not only have young people waiting in the waiting room, but young people are also in the rooms where the decisions are being taken.
To be frank, I don't have the feeling that I have to convince young people of the urgency of the topic, and I also don't have to explain them that we should act. What I do is, as an MEP, it's different as a party. We cannot just enter schools and then do things there. But as an MEP, at least in Germany, I can. So I frequently go to school classes, actually every week, and I talk with them about what is important to them. And what I have to convince them of is not the urgency of the climate crisis. I have to convince them that a political parliament is a place where those decisions are made that affect their daily lives. This is the bridge, the gap that we have to overcome, because a lot of people, not only young people, don't see that what is happening in parliaments, what is happening in governments, is actually reflecting the struggles they have in their everyday life. They asked me, I want to take the public transportation to school, but there's only one bus and it is full. How should I get to school? In a rich country like Germany, they're asking themselves, will there be any jobs that, what kind of training should I make? How will the future be? Will there be a future? We live at the Baltic Sea, it's in the Russian influence zone. This is the questions that are addressed to me, and they are about affordability of life, they are about having a future, and I have to convince them more that they believe that the political arena is a place where these questions are solved they have with life, and this is the bridge I need to overcome, and not explaining the climate crisis because they know very well about it. This is at least the experience that I make when I'm in school classes.
Well, I don't have a lot to add, but I will say, okay, what we can explain, especially to the, well, they have a lot of things to explain to us, the young people. This is something, and we have a lot of things to learn from them on this. But something that we can explain together to all the society is, well, fossil fuels are colonialism of the future. Basically, it's a predatory action against the resources that we will have in the future, that we are stealing these resources and this future from them. This is what we are doing. And then the lack of efforts today, when we are talking about change, decarbonization, when we are talking about our economy, the industry, and the changes that they have, massive transformation that they have to do, the lack of efforts on this side, it will be their problems of the youth generations in their future that they will have to manage. And then, again, remember to all the society that what we are doing today, it will be a huge debt for the future, for the resources of the future, for the possibilities and our room of maneuver in the future. And we cannot stall their future. And this is what we are deciding when we are talking about fossil fuels and climate change.
Yeah, sure.
I think we agree, but I will still say something that can sound like I'm contradicting Dilara a bit. When I look at least the voters in Sweden, we see a big challenge, and that is that among the young women, most of them vote center-left. Among the young men, they don't only vote center-right, they also vote far-right. And we have a problem there. So therefore, that's, I think, one of the challenges we would have. With most of the women, yes, we do not convince them. Why? But the men, we would need to convince. We would need to show why green transition is important, why feminism is important, even crazy. This is crazy, I think, but we even need to convince them why democracy is crazy. When they do polls, it shows that some do not think that necessarily democratic governance is the best governance. They want strong, manly leaders. And that is a dangerous path if we don't ensure that we change it.
Thank you so much. Now I think it's time, because we have to open the discussion to the audience. So if you want to make a question, please raise your hand, and my colleague Iris will give you the microphone.
Thank you very much. My name is Julia Panzer. I'm with the Climate Foundation, so in philanthropy. I resonate on a personal level in particular very much with that vision part, right? I think that's also why we're here. Because oftentimes, and I've been working for over 10 years on climate and energy and fossil fuel transition, you know, very much to my heart. But we came also in philanthropy to that understanding that we need a much bigger vision, because we kind of kid ourselves a little bit, right? We thought the Paris Agreement, we could just tinker a little bit on the edges, you know, like we switch out fossil fuels with renewables, and here we go. But actually, it's the system, right? And I feel that's what we're forgetting. Sometimes even we kid ourselves that we can do it without changing the fundamentals of patriarchy, and the death cult capitalism. And then it's not just feminism, but it's matriarchy, right, for everyone. So I'm wondering how you stand to that, and what's the vision? Where can we go to? Where can we really get behind together, as the majority of people would like to have a life-affirming agenda, right? That doesn't just, where we bring in the climate and so on. But we're afraid in philanthropy, I think, that if we just continue to tinker on the edges without what do we really need to change, we are gonna lose. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions here? Hello everyone, I am Elinor Wikman Lindevall from Sweden. I work as a General Secretary for Social Democrats for Faith and Solidarity. I've been engaged in the climate and environmental issue for, I would say, all my life, but like politically, at least 15 years. And a little bit, it breaks my heart to see this room so empty. I just wish so many more progressive social democrats would prioritize this panel, because this is so important. And I think I want to get back to that point where we're talking about how can we sort of make this understandable and not so complex, because I think the people that get it, they get it. And they are here and they are engaged. In Stockholm they had a huge climate demonstration yesterday. But like, how do we get the rest of the progressive movements onto our sort of path to be able to gather the whole progressive community, building a future that is this hopeful, and also what you talked about, that we are actually, we're not making it only worse for the future, we're also getting sort of kidnapped by other movements and other countries, since we still depend on fossil fuels. So we need to be a bigger group in this room. How do we do this?
Hi, I'm Lucia from PSOE, and I wanted to bring in a bit what Evin was saying. Since there are different votes of young people, we see women voting more left-wing, young men going more for dictatorial or candidates which are more far-right. I was wondering if you have ideas of how maybe that could be changed, or we could go back or draw maybe some of the men back into social democracy, especially the younger generation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You want to start answering those questions? Which of you? Talara? As you want.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so maybe I think they are all interlinked, because it's the big systemic question how we can overcome our defensiveness and be in the forefront of the movement. And I also want to be honest, I don't have a 5-point plan I can present to you, but I have some thoughts actually as social democracy in Germany right now in the process of writing our new manifesto. So we're actually having this debates, because I think we are not really in the zeitgeist right now. We have to rethink what social democracy means in these times, in these different circumstances. And when I see when I look at the past, what progressives all over the world did, and I don't think they did it very well. Of course, there are examples, is that we try to sell our policies as a product that we have to better bring to different target groups, and then there's this policy for this target group, there's that policy for that target group. But what the social democratic vision always was is to mobilize a huge majority, for the many, not the few, to find a common vision that is something that everyone wants, or especially the majority of people wants. Yet we still address political topics. We want to sell it to people. So what has to come first is the vision of a society that, and a theoretical concept I really like to work with is the donut economy. I don't know if you've heard of it, where there is a clear border that is set not by us, it's set by the planet, that we have to stay in order to make sure that this planet is livable. And then there's the inner circle of the donut, where it's about the social security nets that we have to provide in order to make sure that everyone can stay in the donut. And to work and make this tasty little round thing work for everyone, we have to develop the policies. And this is the vision I think we have to find answers to, that we make sure that there is a bigger idea of a society that has wealth, that is centered on the making lives of people better. This is, I think, the crucial thing. It should be people-centered. It should not be about the planet. It should not be about the economy. It should about a good life for the people. And just to give this as a working title, I think we can talk about everything within this goal. So we can talk about the question of one topic I'm working on a lot is circularity, which is, I think, a crucial question when we come to, if we want to become independent of resource imports from autocrats. We have to make sure that loops are closed within our economy. And then we have we can always find an angle that we have to make sure we can connect to the bigger vision, which is being independent, being a strong economy, but being it not for the sake of the economy, but letting it be for the people. So this is maybe just the broader thought that I have with the questions you raised. But in general, I would like to see us to not think about this target group thing, but we really have to be a little bit bigger.
Okay, we have less than 5 minutes, let's say, because then I will close the panel. But one of you, concrete.
Okay. I think Dilara said most of it very well, but I mean, we need to, one of the questions was about how we make it very much more concrete, and I think we said it in the round before also, but whatever we talk about, we need to show that it also includes a climate and a climate perspective. Take China as an example. China is now leading even before some of our countries because they have understood that it leads to more jobs, it leads to new jobs, it leads to a growing economy, and most of the young people actually want a job. They want to be able to live, not live with their parents the rest of their lives, so affordable housing. And using the green transition as a tool, we also are able to build actually affordable apartments where young people can live in. So there are not lack of ways of make it easy to, more concrete, but it is, if we do it, and I do not feel that we always do it, we stay in a level where everything is much more diffuse, and we talk about the future more than we also talk about today, because we need to show that it affects young people today. Of course, when we talk about young people, we have a tendency to talk about the future, which is important because young people are going to live in the future, but young people also need to understand or feel that it affects them today, especially these young guys, for example, who thinks that the center-right or the far-right policies are the best policies because green transition and climate is a threat to their lifestyle. It is important to show that you will have a job thanks to a new way of a new approach. Otherwise, they are being told that your job is disappearing because of the green transition. So that, I think, is very important. And again, I want to emphasize, it is important also that we are where young people are. We need to use the social media platform, be active on the social media platform as others are. Or not only social media platforms, a lot of young guys are gamers. And as I understand, the far right are actually really good on moving around where young people, especially these young guys, are moving. So in the end, I think, the tools are there, but it's up to us to ensure we use them.
Okay, a couple of final comments. I completely share the views of Delara and Evin. my comments are, first, well, we have to be able to interconnect the agenda, the green agenda, with the agenda of affordability and quality of life. Because affordability is one of the main agendas that we have to build together, that it's put it in concrete and less abstract than inequalities and fighting against inequalities. But affordability, we are talking about yourself, your pocket, your efforts, your net measures. Inequalities, it's like, I really believe that inequality is one of the main problems of our society, but they sometimes could be seen as too abstract. And then affordability, wages, prices, this agenda interconnected with the green agenda. And also quality of life. That quality of life, it means health, it means sustainability, it means mobility, like really daily life. This is something that we have to do when we talk about green agenda. Like it's good for you, it's good for your future. And the second thing that we have to do is, in my view, is, well, it's always happens the same with policies, that when you do a policy of transformation, a change, and we are doing a massive change, probably the most important change since the Industrial Revolution, it's first, you see the cost. Well, you have to face the cost, and then a little bit later, you enjoy the benefits. This is something, I don't know, okay, when you want to do a street that has to be a pedestrian street, no? It always happens the same. Yet arrives the city council, and then the shops in the city say, well, we will have less people here, we will sell less. Then you have the neighbors saying, well, I don't know where we will put our cars, we need our cars for the mobility. Then you have the complaints. Then you start the reforms. Well, the reforms is a mess during 1 year, and during all the streets. Probably you will have a decrease of the sales of the shops because less people sit in the street in the middle of the reform. Everybody is like complaining to the city council, and then it arrives the end of the reform, and voila, you have a nice street full of pedestrian, like better for the shops, better for the neighbors, better for the trees, better to live in this street. And everybody then suddenly it's happy there, and all then forget about their complaints. This happens almost always everywhere in the world. Well, we are changing a street, a pedestrian, but we are doing this massively everywhere for 25 years of transformation of our economy, no? With the process of decarbonization. And this is what we are doing. And then during the process, probably we will see a lot of costs, and we will have to manage costs with that, but we will have to push for the future, because when the future it will arrive a better world to live. And this is what will bring the green agenda.
Inspiring, inspiring, inspiring. Thank you so much, the three of you. I would love to give the micro just 1 sec to our Secretary General to say a word. But thank you so much personally, and I think collectively you are amazing, and I think your job in the European Parliament is key for the future and key for our climate also. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for taking part in this discussion. Indeed, hoping that next time that we discuss fair transition or green transition, there's a room full of people. Thank you so much. Tusen tack. Muchas gracias. Dankeschön for being here. We put our faith in your work. No pressure. We'll be expecting action. Thank you so much.